normally on the Gibbling turns, unless they're completely busted openings you can make with, say, blooms and things, they normally stay as 1/1s, right? So a Crab Rider to kill off 2 of them and still live in the next turn will be huge. But let's get right into it now, Lorinda. The first match of the top 8 of Masters Tour Ironforge. Floki on the top on that Libram Paladin, and Turna along the bottom of your screen there on the Token Druid. Take me through these mulligans, Lorinda.
Well, neither player has the hand they're really looking for, is the short version of this. Like, they're okay hands, but neither of them are going to be able to occupy the board in the way to which they are accustomed. We're going to see a lot of cards thrown away here. It'll be interesting to see if the Guardians gets kept from Turna. A quick note on Turna while we're looking at these hands. He, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, got really nervous in these spots. He would constantly make these top 16s, top 8s, and just throw, like straight up awful throws. And then in 2018, he just cleaned up in Oslo. And I spoke to him like, you didn't seem nervous. He's like, yeah, I'm not nervous now. Like, he suddenly realized he just belonged in these top matches and just stopped being nervous through exposure.
And like, many decades ago now, I did used to compete at this game, or try to, I guess. And when you are hitting in those, those important, oh, wait, I could win this tournament kind of spots, then you do feel it no matter what. And I think it's something that only gets better with practice, right? So the fact that Turner has been competing and performing fairly well for a fair few years now means that he is probably just got that sorted. He might still feel nervous, which I think everyone does, but it's just how you respond and control it, right? One thing I will say, though, although there's no huge burst onto the board from Turner, he has now triple Fungal Fortunes, which is absurd. Like, this means he can actually play the slow style of this deck and build, like, the perfect board in the mid-game. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, but he is now, of course, going to be susceptible to Paladin actually being able to do stuff, and that's not necessarily the best place to be. Obviously, he is going to be able to build that big board and, like you say, play that middle game, but the Paladin is going to be able to respond, whereas with a Gibbling start, you might not even get to be able to respond. It might just be, like, instantly over.
Yeah, that is true, but when there's Glowfly with a full hand of spells, there's Soul of the Forest if it lives, and there's Arbor Up.
Yep. Yeah, this is the one you were talking about.
Floki is going to need the exact levels of removal to deal with this, because although Floki has a reasonable hand, the Libram reduction so far is down to 1, but the turn he plays Libram of Justice, if that's the only thing he can play in a given turn and the board is wide, well, he needs to be very ahead on board to make that worthwhile. Otherwise, great, you reduced everything down by 1 health. Here's one of the many buffs that are in the Druid deck that bring them all back above 1 health. Congratulations, nothing changed.
Yeah, and he doesn't have any buffs. Like, I wasn't so much thinking about the Libram of Justice, but more about making 3 or 4 minions that could just start chipping away at some of the minions that are facing him. But you're right, he's not even going to be able to stick 3 or 4 minions in time. It all kicks off next turn. And next turn is too late for Floki. He needs to have the stuff on the board right now in preparation.
There's a couple of options this turn for me. The straightforward one would be Aldor Attendant and Braggart and Blessing of Wisdom trade to draw some more cards. There is this other option where Salet's Pride comes down instead of the Braggart, and although it's easier to kill off, it could help draw Broom. And that is, again, one of the key minions you want if you are going to try and set up some kind of either Libram of Justice turn or just having a board from hand turn.
I mean, he knows how much trouble he's in now as well, because Turner's done nothing, which means he has the hand that he has. Like, there's no surprises here in what Turner's got in hand. This deck is made of 1 and 2 drops, so when it doesn't do anything, you know the hand is precisely what he has. And he is going to go with that Broom pickup with what you're saying, try and get enough things next turn to deal with as much of the problem as possible. You can see from Floki's face, he knows it's coming. There's a shake of the head there already.
Yeah, and test number 1, a Coin Glowfly Swarm comes out. There is a Broom, so Barrow of the top would help.
That's not the Barrow.
Right. And this is where it already feels like a nightmare.
Yeah.
This is what I was talking about. Like, unless you're so far ahead as Paladin, it just takes a hand like this, just 1 Glowfly Swarm with backup, right? So for Turner, there's either Arbor Up or Soul of the Forest. to go for. Yeah, I would imagine it could well be like a plan to go Soul the Forest and then Solar Eclipse Arbor up the turn after.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, he hasn't had much chance, but there may be even options in playing the Braggart a couple of turns ago, just as a 3-3 or whatever it would have been, just to have another thing on board. Because this is not getting there ever, I don't think. So what's he got to hope for? Now, we can see that he has basically lost, of course, of the hand.
I think
in his mind, he has to pick a hand that he can beat. So that involves clearing this and Turna having no reason.
Move quickly.
I mean, there are levels of desperation you have to look at here. The Broom's going to come down with the Sallet's Pride to help clear up 2 minions. And I guess this, again, thins the deck a bit more to hopefully get Barov next turn. But it is just going to go downhill now.
So double Braggart and Broom is basically what he has. And you can see from the body language and everything, it's like, okay, well, I've been in bed all night, happily sleeping, just forgetting today's going to happen. I wake up, just want to get it over with, and you're 1-0 down through no fault of your own after 5 minutes.
And I think for Turner here, 1-1 plus Soul the Forest this turn looks mighty fine, as suddenly the Barov actually then isn't enough, right? Because he can clear one of the boards. They all replace themselves with 2/2s. How do you clear the second one? There just isn't the mana, and there isn't even the cards there in the first place for Floki. So he is going to get that Soul of the Forest down. All the pressure in the world going in here on Floki. That is not a Barov, but it is a small hope, I suppose, as it is a taunt that can soak up. Maybe Floki can just hope that there isn't a Savage Roar available, there isn't the Arbor up there, and maybe this Devout Pupil can just do enough to hold on. But now, yeah, he does have a Broom as well, actually. So there could be like Braggart. You might have to throw Penflingers here, but I think there might be some kind of turn where he can end up rushing these minions in to clear as much of the board as possible. It might still not be good enough to actually win the game, but I think Floki is definitely on desperation mode where it's just anything to not die and to maybe clear this board up, and then just hope Turner doesn't have an immediate refill available to him. Floki is running out of time, though, to make these decisions.
Let me think.
Looks like he is going to go for the Devout Pupil. There's the Braggart, and I imagine there's just going to be a Broom here. So, looking here, I'm just going to try and check what it does, but I think Innovate, Solar Eclipse, and then Arbor up looks absolutely insane right now. And it's probably just lethal. I actually just didn't count this because I was trying to work out the Paladin side play with Floki, but it looks pretty good. What's that, 20? Yeah, that's easily enough damage. Turner is going to take it. And honestly, there just isn't much Floki could do in that scenario. He didn't have the Barov. He didn't have a good enough opening to be far enough ahead on the board. And as I mentioned, the Fungal Fortunes just helping out Turner, getting in such a wide and big hand that he could almost set up whatever he wanted there. And it really did pay off. Have you returned, Lorinda?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, then I have returned, apparently. I wasn't sure myself there just for a moment. But yeah, a very quick start to the day for Turner. And Floki really, not much he could do there. He just got to accept that those happen sometimes and get on with the next game. And that's what this Druid deck is here for. It's to put you under that massive pressure in the lineup. Like if you queue the wrong deck into the Druid, and they get the draw, you just lose. And that was the other way that the Druid wins. You described it perfectly at the start there. It has that mid-game option. It's not just about gibberlings on one, which is all we saw yesterday. Everybody just went gibbering, coin, thing, win. But not so much in this one. This was just the other win condition.
Yeah, as long as you have card draw, you can definitely take your time with this deck because you can make boards that are so awkward to deal with, and then you have multiple ways to push this level of damage because you have that Solar Eclipse, whether it's Savage Roar or Arbor Up, or maybe just, Power of the Wild sometimes gets there too with the help of a Solar Eclipse. So really, really big deal there. Turner gets the first point on the board and now has his Zoo and his own Libram Paladin left to take wins with. And again, this is looking pretty good as far as I see it, Lorinda, for Turner. But I think there might be a certain level of bias, at least from me, just because I personally just prefer Turner's lineup.
I mean, he has got just a focused lineup. We haven't seen many focused lineups in this tournament. They've largely looked like, I like these 4 decks, or I'm going to ban Priest, or I'm going to ban Rogue. They're the lineups we've seen. This is, I'm going to play aggro, and that's a very narrow band of opposition to trade into. But it's working really well for him. All 4 decks kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, and looking at this, Turner is going to switch over to his own Paladin, which also includes 1 Argent Braggart in there, so he's still including that. We'll see how that performs once again. I think it'll be very harsh to say the Braggarts weren't good in the last game for Floki, because none of his cards were particularly good in that last game against the Druid, so I'll still give it a pass on there, but Turner is going to be playing that 1 Libram of Judgment as well, which I believe Floki plays 0 of, so a little bit more leeway in that late game damage, but overall a very, very similar deck.
Yeah, if anything, the Braggart in some worlds might have been okay there as a 2-off, because just playing it as a minion, as a 3-3, might have been enough to kill a minion or 2 off. Obviously, the Druid hand was too good. He wasn't overcoming it. But if the Druid hand had been a bit more mediocre, having a minion for 2 mana, even as a 3-3, would have been an actual advantage there.
Yeah, it was, like I was saying throughout the early game, Floki was so quickly in the desperation zone that it was just maybe there isn't a buff, or maybe there isn't this, maybe there isn't that, so that this minion can maybe trade twice, so then it just buys time more than anything. But like I said, Paladin, it's really difficult to beat out Druid if the Druid draws well, because you then have to draw like the deck's best draw. You have to go Attendant on 1, or like Coin Crab Rider on 1, into buff, into another, into say like Salets, into a Broom Clear to help out, push that board, and it has to be absolutely flawless, and it just simply wasn't in game number 1. But let's move on to our game number 2. Floki on the top on his Paladin once again, and Turner, of course, also on this Libram Paladin. Some slight differences in the deck, but overall pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it's as close to him as a mirror as you would expect to get. There's 1 extra Braggart for Floki, and there's 1 extra something for Turner that I'm desperately trying to find. The Libram of Judgment.
Yeah, Judgment. Yeah.
That's it. That is the only difference. And so basically a mirror match. And as we saw yesterday, or day 1, I think in some ways the early game doesn't matter much in the mirror match unless you get so far ahead you just win the game on the spot.
Right. I half agree with you. I think if you look at the difference in these hands, the early game will matter a lot.
Yes.
Because there might be a point where Floki, for a start, doesn't have any Libram reduction yet in hand, whether it's the Attendant or the Truth Seeker being more important, of course. So the late game can get a bit nutty because of Lady Liadrin, Librams of Hope, Libram of Judgment, but there might be a chance where you just don't get there, because if there's no Libram reductions, they're not coming in any earlier. And also, this opening from Turner is so aggressive. There is Coin Crab Rider as an option, and then Hand of Adol next turn. That, without this Byrov, is close to unkillable at this point, because even with these Salet's Pride, Lorinda, the Penflinger could just say goodbye to it in the next turn to further defend that Crab Rider.
Yeah, obviously, as soon as I say anything, the hands become so utterly divergent that it destroys anything I'm trying to say. But absolutely, and even the Barov here, like Barov Broom is a lot to give up so early, because it gives Turner the license to just go nutty with all of his other cards then.
Yeah, I mean, you can even see how this could play out, right? If Barov is forced to come down, which it might not yet now because there's no buff going on the Crab Rider, but if Barov Broom comes down and then Turner just plays Truth Seeker and laughs, basically, about it, so it's still looking pretty good for him there.
Yeah, and the Bragger as well, with the potentially buffed crabs and things. This is going to get big fast. He seems to be managing resources, so it's not too much of a blowout, though, if if Floki does have to use this Baroff, and Floki's got to consider it already. He won't want to do it, that's for sure, but that's a lot of damage coming in.
I think he can probably take one more turn. Because if he goes, he can go like Attendant. Oh, maybe it's not even. Well, yeah, you should probably just drop the Attendant and play his Braga. His Braga will be a 3/5, which at least then Turna has to at least respect. And then maybe he can get some more out of this Barov, because the big problem now is it's one of those Paladin hands that you get where you've either got only the minions and not the Librams, or only the Librams and not the minions to reduce them. So we see it's definitely the minion focus here for Floki. He has chosen to keep hold of the Braga and go for Salut's Pride to help with a card draw. Because, of course, Braga in this matchup, you can make that an 8/8 pretty easily.
Yeah, I think that Floki's main issue there was how much more buff does Turna have? Like, if Turna has another hand, this just gets really horrible. But because he has the Baroff Broom in hand, it allowed him to take it's not even a risk, but it allowed him to take the more I ignore you and do my thing line. But now he's going to have to respond, because he could just be dead next turn.
I do like this play quite a lot from Turner. It always feels bad to keep a Penflinger on board, but the idea is this pretty much has to be cleared. The Lepinome is going to deal an additional 2 anyway, and then if it is cleared, it probably is Barov. And then, like I said, Turner just goes Aldor Truthseeker. Next turn he goes Libram of Judgment, and then probably the Argent Braga. And he's just piling on more and more damage that Floki will definitely be on the back foot for.
Yep, and these are the games. It's not quite a blowout. There's definitely ways back into this for Floki, but he's going to have to not make a single bad play, and he's probably going to have to find some imaginative ones as well. He has got the hand size that this means this isn't quite dead. But yeah, he's now using up his good cards, and that's never fun.
Do try to keep yourselves alive.
Still hasn't got a buff. It's insane.
Yeah, it's just sometimes you get those hands that just don't actually like meld the deck together. You definitely need a split between the minions and the spells here, and he's just not getting those spells.
Yeah, apparently Crane, and you know, he has shown evidence. It's not just Crane having a bit of a moan. He got this not only on stream, but at 2-all in the last round of the Swiss. He also got this Paladin didn't draw the things hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Otherwise, we might have been seeing Crane hanging out in this top 16. But he's not here, so...
Oh, one man off a really sick play here. But I guess it's not too bad. He could go, like, Braga into Hand of a Doll and use the other broom to clear. It's to push 2 extra damage. Not that it matters too much for that 2 damage right now, but mainly it kills the Truthseeker and puts Turner back onto an empty board, whereas if Floki can just draw another spell or 2, these Devout Pupils could come in really clutch to buy him a lot of time.
Yeah, this is a hard turn, because first of all, he's got to make that decision, like, do I want to go wide, or do I want to have some actual stuff going on? And secondly, he's got to do it mechanically correct. There's a lot of sort of ordering and trickiness in the hand, so it's difficult in 2 ways to plan in your head. And here's just going to go for the pupil. Here's my guy. This will slow you down, then next turn I can hopefully get a couple of braggots down and go wider.
Yeah, well, the benefit of doing it this way is you get to go Braga, Hand of a Doll, Braga, Broom.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. The only worry is there might not be a minion big enough to make that worthwhile, right? Because you imagine this 4/6 will trade into the Devout Pupil in some respect, maybe with the help of a Libram. And if that's the case, well, it's going to be so much smaller that the braggots become way worse anyway. Again, another decent turn here could be... Oh, it might be the way. Penflinger, Libram of Justice, Braggot could come down. Maybe I'm just I feel like I'm just a tempo Braggot player and not an actual...
You are like...
I'm not greedy enough with these.
You are a tempo Braggot player. But both players here, like the nature of the health totals is dictating this game. Isn't just sort of developing board and playing Hearthstone at the moment. There's this very real threat from Turner that if he can just push a damage here and there, he just wins the game.
Yeah, and I like this a lot. He's just got 2 4/6s now.
Yeah.
And yeah, he gets to go face with that one. Then he still has this Libram of Judgment just in hand, waiting to push an additional 5.
Sort of feel like this is almost like the pure level of Hearthstone. If you're teaching someone what the game is about, I'm trying to do 30 points of damage, and there's no real trickery. It's just, can I do that? Can I sneak an extra 10 in before my opponent starts to turn it around? And so far, I think the answer is yes.
This is where that discipline last turn from Floki is going to pay off, because he does get to make this braggart turn, because the 4/6 didn't have to trade into the Devout Pupil. So now Floki has flipped the board on its head here. And right after seeing a Libram of Justice, Floki's probably feeling confident about this board state.
Yeah, it's a really good play. Like, doing nothing, or the equivalent of doing nothing last turn, is one of the hardest things to do in whole of Hearthstone. Like, he just played the straightforward. He basically passed last turn. Oh, no, I know he spent his mana. I know he played a minion, but absolutely just chilling when he did it, because he had this in mind.
And there is a couple of options here for Turner too. He could just go crazy in Libram of Judgment and go face and just presume he's going to make it. But realistically, killing the Worgen and then playing Libram of Hope makes it so that the braggarts don't actually trade into the 8/8 very well. And then on top of that, that will then activate and corrupt the Libram of Judgment in hand. So then that's going to have the lifesteal effect, which in this matchup is important. I know we discussed yesterday that lifesteal isn't always important in certain matchups for Libram Paladin, but in this one, the healing can make a big difference because your opponent can heal as well.
Yeah, it's basically double damage when it comes down to this. Not quite at the moment for Turner, but it's about to flip, as you say. It can flip again. If Turner picks up the second Penflinger, he suddenly starts looking at just winning the game from hand. Because Floki's so low. But again, like you say, Floki, in Turner's mind at least, will be able to heal back up. So Turner can't really commit to that route.
And also Turner just doesn't have the Librams, right? To do the consecutive Penflinger bounce.
No, but he's got the wisdom. He'll find a way to draw cards if he needs a couple more cards. If that was life or death, I think. But at the moment, absolutely, it's not all there.
I must move quickly.
Because the Libram of Judgment's 5, and you don't need many Penflinger bounces to do the other 5. Is what I'm trying to say there, I guess. But yeah, he's going to be on the back foot for a turn or two. But we do often see that the amount of resources Floki's had to use just to stay in this might bite him if Turner can restabilize.
Well, there's a Libram of Wisdom. That will help.
Well,
Rush, though.
No rush and no beef. No great stuff going on.
Also, this is awkward because he has to hero power, right? Or throw away the Libram. He can't play Salet's Pride, Flinger, sorry. Libram of Wisdom on Salet's Pride, and then the Libram of Judgment. Oh, he's doing it this way. Okay.
The old school arena way of doing things. Use it as a removal card, except it's not because your opponent hits you for 7. And yeah, it's just getting. Oh my goodness, that's just a game changer.
Clutch there for Floki, because if he didn't get hold of either healing or taunt, he just dies, regardless of the damage here. So that is absolutely huge. He gets the Libram of Hope off the top, and suddenly Turner's is the one who's in need of a Barrow.
Yeah, and he hasn't got it. He's got the Lady Liadrian, which would normally be the card he wanted here, but right now, absolutely not.
Yeah, no.
Maybe in a
Broom as
turn or
well.
two, sure, but it's no.
Can he get away with playing Salet's Pride this turn? Probably not.
I mean, he would like to, but there's lots of things that I would like that I don't get as well. I don't think so. Oh, let's word that a different way. Can he get away with not playing?
Let me think.
I mean, he can just Libram of Hope.
Right, but does he just
with
lose if
Penflinger?
he goes down the straightforward route here?
Well, you can Penflinger away some of the stuff, he can Libram of Hope and also buff it with Libram of Wisdom.
Right.
So then it becomes a 9/9, so the 8/8 Divine Shield doesn't trade cleanly with it.
I mean,
He
yeah,
also
he
gets
gets
to ping the
off
shield.
yeah.
So, this is the, I guess, stage 1 basic level play, which is the one that makes the most sense, right? You just keep slightly okay on board. There's still tons of healing with the weapon as well, effectively plus 10. The big problem here is Turna needs to kill that 8/8 with either one weapon swing or through some kind of trade. If he has to, like, swing into it twice, that is just not feasible.
So, flingers and missiles are the order of the day here. And then we're back to almost another reversal. Floki is starting to run out of stuff. If he doesn't get it done on board, suddenly Turner might be the one who gets the stuff. But he didn't get to play that pride like he wanted to.
He does have the other option now, though. Next turn, he can Liadrin and a Devout Pupil. So he gets the kind of weak turn of having to play Lady Liadrin to get those 2 Libram of Hopes back. But he does have that defensive tool of that Devout Pupil to protect himself. So that is going to pay off pretty nicely. It's all just about how Floki can pile on the pressure here. And unfortunately, he is going to give Turner an additional card. And Broom is perfect.
Yep, Turner... Basically, if he gets to play Liadrin next turn and come out alive, he will be winning the game. There's still a lot of ifs in that statement, as always. But that will be his aim.
I'm going to throw the poke.
But, you know, Floki is entitled to draw a good card next turn to go with the garbage he currently has available. Oh, he shook his head there. I wondered why, but yeah.
This looks close, but I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah. And he knows it, I think.
So he can easily kill off the Truth Seeker. Penflinger away the 1/1. He knows there's a Penflinger for Floki, but if the 10/10 doesn't die, there's no Librams to combo with the Penflinger. So I think the play... Oh, he isn't going to play Liadrin? Oh, I am very surprised.
Me too, me too.
I thought this was going to be a Liadrin, buff it with the Libram to reduce Devout Pupil, and then play Penflinger, Devout Pupil, Broom. Because then he could
That's what I was
Libram of Hope
expecting.
next turn.
But let's see where he goes with this.
I must move quickly.
I am
Yeah, me
really
too.
surprised at this turn. Because now he has... Obviously this turn is still strong, right? But it means if he wants to get Libram of Hope down again, he has to play another whole turn before that happens.
Yeah, this... I'm not going to comment until I see what the board state is at the end of the turn, because he's thinking is such a different box to where I was at that I'm not quite sure... Okay, that's fine. Okay, that all worked out really nicely. He saw that very quickly. That's just nothing like what I was expecting to see, but it worked out kind of the same. Right, no lethal available, but like you say, proccing those wisdoms really helps his Penflinger.
Yeah, so the outcome of this turn is still obviously very good. He clears the board, and the other turn wouldn't have cleared the board. It just
Maybe
would
he
have
might
gave
win.
him Libram of Hopes.
I think he can win, depending on this how this Blessing of Wisdom fares.
Yep.
If it draws the right stuff, I think he can win the game this turn. It's very
Or
unlikely.
the other Penflinger, right?
It's not impossible. Yeah, the other Penflinger would be good. So you attack once now to see if you get the other Penflinger. He doesn't. Picks up another Libram, though. Turner's eyes getting wider and wider as his turn goes on.
There it is.
Oh, wow.
And that's just
Oh my, he's going to get to do the old Libram, my own Penflinger, to win the game. And he got there, Raven, with no cards at the start of the turn that looked like they could possibly get it done. And
Yeah, that was a really crazy ending to the game. And yet again, anyone who dares question the quality of Crab Rider in this deck can just look at that game and realize it pretty much just saved Floki there, because he needed those draws to get there, and he especially needed that second draw from the Wind Fury. So an insane game there. It did look like Turna was in control for the back end of that game, and I'm not saying the other player would have done any better or not, but it was definitely scary. My only thought for the other play, I think I mentioned it, was if he left the 10-10 Divine Shield alive, he could have pinned the Divine Shield off maybe, but anyway, it couldn't have traded on board.
Yeah.
Which then means it strands the Librams attached to the minion, so then Turna has much less to worry about in the form of Penflingers, because the 10-10 just doesn't die. So I think it was a very interesting couple of turns there towards the end, and it played out in an unfortunate way, of course, for Turna, but Floki doing exactly what he needed to do to give him the highest chance at an out, and that second Penflinger was exactly what he needed, and he's going to even this series up 1-1.
Yeah, all the little ordering things were just really nice there from Floki. The one attack, see what you get, and yeah, he needed to do it all right. He was very tight on mana to get that turn done. Something else I've been impressed with Floki so far is how he's maintained his composure through this. Looking at the webcam, like game 1, you get destroyed by Druid. Okay, that's just Hearthstone, that happens. Easy to say on ladder, not so easy to say when you're in the top 8 of a big tournament. And then this game again, he's just enjoying himself. And if you enjoy yourself, you play your best.
I definitely think in this series so far, Floki probably shouldn't be too upset with the Druid loss he took versus Turner's Druid, because Druid does that. Whereas I think Turna will feel a lot worse about that game than Floki felt about the Druid game. So at least in potentially an emotional state, Floki for me is on the better end of the stick here. But that is pretty crazy now. He got a win with that Libram Paladin. If he would have lost, he would have been in such a terrible spot with Turna only having the Zoo Warlock to win with. So now it's all even, and there is the Whirl Kick Rogue and Highlander Priest versus the Libram Paladin and Zoo. So still a lot of ball in the air here, and Floki's Whirl Kick Rogue is going to be the choice. And are you a fan of this deck, Lorinda?
I like this deck a lot. All variants on it. If you take out the Whirl Kicks and just put in one Whirl Kick and one something else, any sort of variant on it is fine. But the engine of Foxies and Swindles and Questings, Secret Passages, all that stuff going on, I don't really care what else you put in, like Nitro Boost Poison, I can take or leave, to be honest. But the actual engine that goes into this deck is just superb. It's just got so much power.
Yeah, and we'll see how it performs versus the rest of Turner's lineup, I guess. I think there's an okay matchup with the Paladin, but then a really good matchup for Floki if he hits that Zoo Warlock. So we'll have to see what the queue is going to be very, very soon, of course, when we get Turner's deck. But if it is going to be Rogue versus Warlock, I think we could be looking at Floki putting himself in a very strong position to win this series and move on to the top 4 as well. And that's just one even greater step, not only towards just, winning the tournament, but also getting more points towards the Grandmaster's potential promotion, which is a big deal for Floki since he is sitting in our European zone here for Grandmasters.
Yeah, just to clarify that, European just has so many more points required to get you in there. It got to the point towards the end of last year under the old system where you basically had to win a Masters Tour to qualify for European Grandmasters, and in Americas you kind of had to turn up.
You just had to sign in at the door.
Yeah, just remember to sign in, beat Impact, sign into the tournament, become a Grandmaster. That's no offense.
Here we go.
Impact did a lot of work to get there.
It is going to be this Rogue versus the Paladin first for Turna, and Turna has I would say pretty good hand, has something to do early with that first day of school, but most importantly has that Aldor Truthseeker, which really does unlock so much of the power of the deck. But look at this Rogue hand. It doesn't quite look good enough to me, Lorinda.
I mean, okay, so these 4 cards, if there was no deck, I would agree with you. But I think this just gets good really fast. The Paladin plays something, you backstab it, and then everything opens up from there. So you almost wish you were going second with this hand as Rogue, I think. But I don't know, I like this hand. I think it develops with almost any top deck into a good hand. But yeah, the 4 cards don't particularly synergize right now. I nearly said, and I wish I'd said it now, that only Jandis really would be a poor top deck here. And even that's fine.
Yep, Floki just taking the slow approach, of course. No need to get a bit silly and go like prize plunderer, one thief or something. So he's just taking a slower approach here, but Turner's also not exactly got anything too crazy to do this turn because the minion didn't stick. So again, both these players not exactly off to the races quite yet, but I'm sure that'll change in the near future.
Yeah, like now I should imagine. Well kick, another bad pickup as it happens. You want it, but you don't necessarily want it this early. It's more of a reload card a lot of the time. But Floki's now in a position where he can start to make a lot of stuff if he wants to. He may just choose to wait until next turn and then have 2 or 3 strong turns in a row, or he may just choose to use the World Kick Master because 1/2 is a minion on the board and it will challenge Paladin minions. I think you end up thinking about Cram Session forever and then taking Brain Freeze here.
Yeah, I think Brain Freeze is just the more reliable card to actually achieve something good here. So I like this. And now Turner has to consider whether he wants to actually kill this World Kick this turn or not, because I've always tried leaving it up in these kind of situations and I've always regretted it.
Yeah, like you don't necessarily want to play it early as the Rogue because it's not really a threat. You're not really going to draw many cards. But on the other side of that, you absolutely don't want to leave it up. Part of the reason you don't want to play it is because it's normally easy to kill off. But actually here, it's a real inconvenience for Turner. It might well just,
Let me think.
I was actually
without messing around with skippers, it just stays there.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because Skipper's a good card against Rogue, of course, but I was just looking at Skipper and then Ethereal to kill it off, but it does look like he is going to go for the Broom with the Hand of Adal instead and just throw away the rush effect.
Brain Freeze, anybody? He nods at his own decision there. He's like, yep, I chose the right card last turn.
Yeah, nothing wrong with a bit of self-motivation.
Plenty of other ways of dealing with this, of course, but I think you save the Plunderer for a bigger emergency later. You want that with a Shadow Step to take down Divine Shield and a minion all the time, I think. But he's leading into Jandis, and his only question really is, do I think that Turner can clear my board with a Baroth and a Broom? And he's just seen one Broom go. We might see Floki just go, not all in, but incredibly wide this next turn.
And for Turner, very few worlds in which you're not going to coin Truth Seeker when you have the chance. Gets the Libram of Wisdom on there as well. And a fairly substantial taunt minion in the way here now for Floki to try and deal with.
He saved the Plunderer last turn, though. I know he doesn't have the Shadow Step, but a combination of small minions, backstabs, and plunders will probably just enable him to go incredibly wide here, deal with this, and still connect some damage as well, most likely.
So many options.
The touch of the void.
This one's a real page turner.
It is a thing, knowing that Paladin doesn't play Consecration in basically any decks anymore. You know, you can get away with these shambolic collection of awful minions.
Right.
Just kill you really fast.
Yeah, they just get the job done. And this is why the Risky Skipper was held onto for Turner. Because you are often facing a board like this against Rogue. So Risky Skipper will help out. He could even do something like really weird and just go Libram of Justice, Risky Skipper, and then one of the 1-drops.
I'll show you who's boss.
Do you play the Pride I was going to go with here? And just do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it guarantees him a playable card this turn, right, as well, to go with it.
He's not making progress, though, that he can see. But in Turner's mind, his opponent has a handful of secret passages and card draw. Whereas actually Floki has a Jandis, and that's a massive deal. But nothing really going on apart from Jandis and the Faceless here.
Move quickly.
Yeah, but to be fair, Jandis plus Evolve is actually a really
sick.
So it's going to pay off a lot that Turner chose to hold on to this Libram of Justice this turn.
And now the thing I was talking about where Rogue plays off the top of its deck well early, not so much later on because a lot of the card decks are small.
Okay.
Floki. He's enjoying this.
I wonder.
I mean, Moonfang is pretty silly.
Give me that. Not what I want.
Does of course show some respect to the risky skipper because he knows that if there's one bane of Jandis, it is a risky skipper turn, and normally in the form of a warrior, of course. But
yeah, if Paladin decides to get it, then good for the Paladin, I guess. Right, Turner, you need to make this turn count. You've got a lot of options available to you. Pew as much as you can. Not taking any chances with this at all. And you highlighted that the other day in a similar sort of situation, that sometimes why take a chance? Just do the thing that works, that you know is going to work.
so he's just going to try and kill this off, I guess, or at least do as much as he can. If he leaves the Plunderer down, then it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah, he's on 24. He's got a handful of stuff ready to go. And, Floki down to 3 cards. Like I say, Turner will assume that it's worse than it is in Floki's hand. But Floki's kind of out of stuff for the time being, at least. Secret Passage would change that rather fast.
Yeah, and this is pretty funny, right? Because Floki could actually just backstab this now.
Yeah. I just say things can change in a hurry, though. Here comes the questing. With backup.
Give me a quest.
Oh.
It's like probably just Pyroblast, right?
I imagine Grand Finale is just a fraction better, but I don't know, if I'm honest.
Yeah, so the problem with Grand Finale is he doesn't have a way to proc it for multiples. And if he pays 8 mana for an 8/8, and then your opponent pays that or less for an 8/8 Divine Shield heal, then you're just behind, right?
Yeah, I think the Pyroblast, if this was turn 1, I think I'd have agreed with you. But because he has nothing to do going into turn 8, it just fits your curve a little bit better by doing it now, and hope that you can get a Pyroblast worth of damage anyway in the next couple of draws. But certainly Pyroblast also looked fine. It goes over the top of the taunts, and you're hoping to get some damage in there.
Hey, it does get extra card draw as well from the Druid minion, the Merchant.
Yeah, good point. Edwin Van Cleef just won't leave us alone.
Let me think. I must have slain 100 or so.
So he's going to have to commit to a Broom this turn to just get through some of this.
Yeah, and that'll be Broom number 2.
And he's also, I imagine, not going to kill the 1/1 to try and hope that the Death Rattle effect goes on the 1/1.
Sure.
Because if it goes on the questing, that's a problem, because Turner wants to kill the questing this turn.
I must move quickly.
This Jandis has a lot to answer for. Okay. Right, the brooms are gone. If Floki does get into a position where he can actually do anything, then nothing to fear. But Turner, for the time being, has turned it around. And that is not the card, really, that Floki needed right now, in my opinion. Choosing to use a prep just to draw a card next turn, basically.
Well, Secret Passage is going to help. That's something he needs to be able to just redraw the hand and get something good. But the real trick now is for Turner if he can actually just pile on the pressure. And he can to an extent just ignore this elemental and just start going face, maybe buff with Hand of a Doll and go weapon. Or he could just go Libram of Hope and not only again get that minion that just strictly challenges the 8/8, but also activate that Libram of Judgment that's in his hand as well.
And then for Floki next turn, he's going to have a decision with his Secret Passage whether to keep stuff, because you get to make infinite stuff with Secret Passage. Do you want to keep some of it for your Edwin, or do you want to just forget that Edwin exists and spend it all on the tempo turn? So whatever Turner does here will influence that decision that Floki might just have to never have an Edwin. It might just be a singular 4-mana 2/2. And this is a lot. This might require some generation to deal with this, I think.
Yeah, and I like this, just recognition that, yep, the 8/8 doesn't matter. He can just put more on board. Rogue, not really specialised in dealing with wide boards very well at all, outside of, like you mentioned, generating a mage spell or something to get the job done. So it's going to be looking a little bit tough here. Shadow Step, not going to get too much done. Maybe it helps with Pharaoh Cat, but still, this is looking to be a worrisome spot here for Floki.
Yeah, it's all too slow. It looks like he just dies next turn a lot of the time here, or effectively dies anyway. Like the Whirl Kick, no use here. The Cat's just a turn too slow. The stuff you have on board, just a little bit not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, right now, there's no way to kill everything on the board. Therefore, he will lose because he has the 5 damage from hand from Libram of Judgment, 2 more from Hand of a Doll, like the Penflinger. So all the damage in the world is there, honestly. And even bouncing this Pharaoh Cat, there's no mana to actually play anything anyway. So,
yep, nice work from Turner there, recognising that was his spot, that he had to do something before Floki could fight back. Because you can see how this would have got out of hand over the next turn or two if Turner hadn't set up the lethal here.
yep, and Floki even knows. I think that's just 100% lethal on. Oh no, because the Grave Arrow. Sorry, yeah.
But he knows, like, he doesn't know, but he knows.
Yeah, so with just Libram of Judgment and a Penflinger, then you chuck everything else on the minions and go through, or do, whichever way you want. There is plenty of damage here, and that does mean that Turner is going to make this match 2-1, and he does get a victory with his Libram Paladin, so that's going to feel good, and it means Turner only has his Zoo Warlock left to get a win with now.
Yeah, you say that quick, it sounds easy. But
it is. Zoo's pretty good.
Zoo has been one of the standout decks this tournament, I think. I mean, Priest has been, but we knew that. And the win rate has gone down because everyone was ready for it. Rogue, we knew was good. Zoo, until the last couple of days before the tournament, I don't think people really had it on their radar much.
Yeah, I think a lot of players were aware of Zoo as a potential choice, but just chose to go other directions because, again, there's a few ways you can go about preparing for a tournament. You can choose to bring what you think are the best decks, just full stop, which we've seen some players do and have success with, or you can try and do some kind of counterplay to it, and we see that from a lot of the other players, for example, bring in more aggressive lineups. But we see here, it looked good for Floki, but honestly, that risky skipper was a huge deal to get there for Turner, able to clear off that board without having to overcommit some of these resources. And even though the Grey Bow's there, it was just not enough. And quite frankly, the draw just wasn't there for Floki for the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, when he got the opening hand, you said it was a bad hand, and I did agree, but I was like, well, no, he'll draw his way out of it. And then it went Jandis, into Whirl Kick, Suddenly the draw, it wasn't backed up by the deck like you would hope, and it fell apart. And even after the Jandis, the Edwin was too late, the Secret Passages were badly timed in the draw, not Floki's fault. The whole thing just didn't come in the right order for him. And Turner capitalised perfectly on it, like a pro. Bosh. One mistake, one drawing error, and you're out. Unlucky.
Yeah, and it does mean this Warlock list from Turner is going to be the last one here, and this is looking pretty huge for him as well. This will I think line up against the Priest okay, but honestly I think the Rogue is the scary one. So although Turna is clearly favoured if we're just looking at score, he has 2 goes at winning 1 game, he hasn't got the best matchups, I would say, for Zoo. It does mean that I think he will have to grab a win against the Priest to have a good chance.
Yep, I agree with that. Very standard looking list here. You mess around with neophytes and merchants sort of at your own, I don't know, whatever you like. What suits you? I can't think of a word, so I'm just going to make another sentence up here.
Discretion.
Discretion's a great word. Thank you for that. I thought of that all by myself. But basically, this is the list. There's no Soulfire. That's another card you can choose to have a one of if you want. But there's not a lot to wriggle apart from horrors in this deck.
Yeah, honestly, the list outside of just a couple of spots is fairly agreed upon right now. The big, not big surprises, but small surprise for me was the Manari Moshas looking as good as they have been, helping negate some of that, heavy life tap or flame imp options, and just being a decent minion to play on curve. It's effectively like the spider tank effect, right? Of just a 3-mana 3/4. Regardless of its effect, is just a good shape to have in many of the metagames we've had, because it's just enough health to survive a double trade and just enough attack to be a relevant threat. So it's going to be pretty cool to see, and we will get to see very quickly what Floki is going to choose to queue in first. But of course, this being Conquest, it does mean that Floki, if he wants to continue through this top 8, he will have to actually win with his Priest and his Rogue against this Warlock.
Yeah, going back to the Mosha, like something you brought up in the Paladin mirror is lifesteal matters in this meta. Not necessarily in every single game, but a lot. And Mosha can just turn that around. You're hurting yourself so much that its effect, the lifesteal, is always relevant. You're not doing it when you're on 30 very often.
Right.
Obviously, it helps with flesh giants and such like as well. But the whole thing just fits in nicely into this metagame, which is very much the basics of I'm trying to do 30 damage, so if I gain some back, that's good, because you're trying to do 30 damage too. Like, the real ABC level of Hearthstone is kind of what we're seeing so much of in this current metagame.
Yeah, and you see some of the differences as well in a lot of the matchups. Look at Libram Paladin. Some players have those Libram of Judgments, some don't. And then suddenly, if I'm playing the Mirror, I would rather have the weapon than not. Same with Warlock, although I don't think it's the case in any Zoo lists that have been put forward in this tournament. But if one player played the Manari Moshas and you play in a Mirror and the opponent doesn't, I would feel pretty happy about that, because you would gain that lifesteal over your opponent, so it wouldn't really feel even anymore. But we are finally ready to get into our game number 4 of this series. It is going to be Floki on the top, queuing the Rogue once again, and Turna going for the Warlock that he has left to get a win with, keeping the hand of Gul'dan, and that alone in this opening hand, Lorinda.
Yeah, this is something actually you were saying about yesterday, how important this card advantage really can be. Obviously against Rogue, it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit slow. Not a lot slow, by the way, but just a tiny bit. And it is a card that isn't a minion to occupy the board with, so you are giving the Rogue the chance to just start off very wide with this, this opening choice.
And on Floki's side here, just having Coin Evil Miscreant is absolutely fantastic. Not only a good shape to get on board nice and early, but those lackeys get some work done.
This is one of the big strengths of the Neophyte that doesn't get talked about enough. Just play it on curve, on turn 2, against any aggro deck, and they lose the coin. It's just so dumb.
Yeah, it's really huge, isn't it? I was even maybe stupidly staring at like prep 1 thief that turn, but yeah, definitely not worthwhile when Swindle's in hand and you can prep 1 thief pretty much whenever to get the reduction on the spell you get anyway. But it's that spider tank I was talking about earlier. It's not exactly getting its effect done now because no demons are on board, but just an additional minion, a 3/4, kind of awkward to deal with, means that Floki is just falling behind a tiny bit now.
Yeah, people talk about sort of power creep, which happens in every card game ever. But the stats of 3 and 4 haven't really been power crept. The things you can do on a 3-drop that has 3/4 stats have gone up, of course, but it's still just chunky. It needs a lot of work to get rid of. And if anything, minions have got smaller, not bigger, things like Miscreant over time, because of their huge utility values.
Yep.
Brotherhood
And speaking of the word huge, that's a pretty huge Edwin Van Cleef now, and even getting this Nitro Boost poison is going to be nice because he can get that trade on one of the minions. So now there's just a 12-10 that Turner has to try and deal with over the course of realistically, what, 2.5 turns to an extent if we're just counting lethal?
I do like how Floki is so naturally just comfortable with that sort of ordering. You know, there's the option to just have a 12-12 Edwin there, but the Nitro Boost would have been much, much, much worse placed and so on. Because he could have, maybe he wasn't even right. Maybe because he could have Nitro Boosted the opposing minion. Does that work?
Yes, it does.
And then you take an extra damage, you know, Edwin's a 12-12 forever.
But he wouldn't have been able to... oh, yeah, okay, sure.
I was going to say how comfortable he was with that ordering, but I think he might actually just not have been correct.
I'm sure someone will let us know soon. Well,
yeah, I know. The
approximately,
second
what,
I say
30
something
minutes
like that, I
is the
get
delay?
27
Oh,
messages saying
yeah, we'll
how
find out.
stupid I am.
Most importantly, though, bringing back to what's actually going on, this miscreant giving a double Kobold Lackey means that if this Van Cleef gets to hit again without some form of heal from Turner, then that is just going to be effectively lethal from hand with the double Kobold, especially with that Shadow Step, basically creating 6 damage from hand there for 2 mana.
When you word it like that, that's kind of silly.
He can clear this, though. He can clear the Van Cleef.
And yeah, he can.
Many possibilities.
I'm sorry, my brain's instantly going to, could he have cleared it if it was a 12-12?
I'm also thinking, so Turner sat here thinking, okay, I can kill Van Cleef. What happens if I just hit him in the face instead, though? Because he can push loads of damage face and play the Voidwalker, which has to be punched through as well.
I mean, if he does it, I'm not going to say it was wrong. We can see it.
I like it.
Work.
I think in Turner's position, I think he should go face, because if he doesn't, is he really going to kill Van Cleef and make a wide enough board?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Oh, yeah. Problem is, though, he didn't play the Voidwalker.
So now he's dead.
Yeah. It's going to get the bad news that this series is going up to 2-2 and going to be going to that final game. Shadow Step going to be enough with double Lackey, but overall, whether you think playing the Voidwalker instead of Wriggling Horror was correct or not, I do like the approach of saying if he doesn't have, the 6 extra damage from hand needed, Turner pretty much just wins the game at that point because the trades probably don't happen, or if Van Cleef has to trade, then Turner's gained like a whole additional turn anyway. So it is one of those moments in Hearthstone where you do have to work out whether you become the it's more benefit to you to try and play chicken with your opponent than it is to them. And the second you start winning those outcomes, you will just win more games of Hearthstone more often than not.
Yeah, they're the ones where you have to pretend we're not casting with full vision of what is happening. It's very easy, well, it's not very easy because we get things wrong enough, but it's quite easy to play the game when you can see both hands. It's much, much harder when you can only see one of them and you have to make an informed guess as to whether you think your opponent's going to kill you or not. Yeah, and he took that chance, and this time around it didn't work, but it doesn't mean it was definitely the wrong play.
Yeah, and of course, just a quick throwback as we realised that the Nitro Boost first wouldn't have worked because it wouldn't have actually buffed the weapon because it wasn't corrupted. So
thanks, Derek.
Thank you, Derek, for that one. You're a good guy, Derek, no matter what everyone else says. But yeah, that does mean we are going into 2-2. So it is going to come all the way down to this Zoo list once again, going up against Floki's Highlander Priest. So as I said, I think the Rogue had a good matchup versus Zoo anyway, although it was very close for Turner. And this Priest is a little bit more even, I think, Lorinda. And I think Zoo does well, but Priest does have some of those draws that can get there.
Priest feels like it doesn't belong in this particular match. Like, we've had these sort of very tempo-orientated board battles for the entire match, and then one of the players just goes, I'm sick of this, here's a Priest. Like, I'm just going to kill your things and make my tempo the old-fashioned way by killing your things and putting a big thing down. And I know, it just doesn't feel like it belongs in with the other decks. But that's because the Warrior was banned, of course, of Floki's.
Right.
his lineup is making sense. It's just that after the ban, it just looks a little bit strange because of how this match is lined up with Turner's very aggressive field. And like you say, it's going to be a short one way or the other, this, I think. The Priest either gets the control early or it does not.
Yeah, Zoo can go fairly late, but there are only a certain amount of threats that feel relevant if the Priest gets control of the game, right? There's the Flesh Giants and any duplicate effects that you can get with the Merchant on them, of course. But really, it's those Flesh Giants and maybe the windows the Zoo needs to open to get through this game, because I think Derek and myself were casting yesterday this matchup, and the Neophytes actually could have opened up an even bigger window than they actually ended up doing in that game, to just say, well, actually, Priest, you normally deal with loads of stuff with spells, so if I can like Neophyte with a board that is very threatening, that creates enough space to actually win the game. So we'll see how it plays out. And it looks like Turner might be keeping this Neophyte. So I do wonder if he's planning on just playing that one out on curve.
Worked well last game. A totally different situation, of course, but the turn 2 Neophyte just completely shut down that rogue for the one turn that turned out to matter much later on. And yeah, here he goes. He's going to curve out. And Floki has an absolute shambles of a selection to choose from right now. That's a bit better.
Yeah, Breath of the Infinite will help. And of course, I imagine we're going to see the Acidic Swampoos just thrown out on 2, just as a minion to try and get any form of trade.
Yeah, it's a decent tech card, isn't it, for that reason? When it doesn't do its teching, it's still a 3-2 for 2. It's still certainly not ideal, but it's a minion on turn 2. Remember when Priest just couldn't have a minion on turn 2? They just didn't exist. So yeah, here we go.
Tour Guide would allow a free tap here. I do just wonder whether it's ever like tap then Tour Guide to just set it up for next turn. But I imagine actually Turner is just going to be playing the Nightshade Matron, right? So that is pretty much guaranteed. He does end up just popping the tap now, gets raised dead. With the help of this Broom, he can actually trade off the Neophyte and guarantee another Neophyte in hand, which I like a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, he can set up the raised dead as well.
Yeah. I just
there you
thought,
go, even.
Yeah. I just thought a new Neophyte, even though it slows this turn down, I think later on having a Neophyte in hand could be really good.
Yeah, the problem later on is because it's a Highlander Priest, the Highlander bit being the really important part, you don't really know which turn to drop the Neophyte. So it would be good arbitrarily, but you're not really sure how to get the maximum use out of it. So just make minions instead, I think was the argument.
Yeah, I do think, though, just dropping Neophyte whenever you have a board is always just good, because your opponent, it will just be harder to deal with 9 times out of 10. But yeah,
yep.
You are right, definitely difficult timing-wise. And I imagine this is probably just going to be Matron as a 5-5. Put enough power on the board and he still gets the benefit of the Hand of Cooldown.
Yeah, and this is where it's going to get very wobbly for Floki indeed. Really not got the juice required to deal with much right now. It can change fast, of course, but currently in danger of just taking too much of a beating too soon if he doesn't get to deal with the next wave that Turner's going to add next turn.
No, don't. It's still good.
Okay, 3 mana 8/8s are quite good. Sounds like a Shaman card from the past.
Yeah, and there is even now, potentially though, instead, like Dark Glare Raised Dead this turn. He has all the health in the world to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can set up this monstrous board and still have another monstrous board to come next turn as well, which he can, you are in such a good position against any control deck.
Oh, and there's the Neophyte. So I actually like holding off on the Neophyte this turn.
Yeah,
I like this a lot, and then using the giant Neophyte turn next turn.
Yeah, that shuts down Soul Mirror then as well.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, playing the Giant now is fine as well. You're not really expecting it to die. Hysteria or like Zephyrus would be big problems here.
Yeah.
Side of that. Ooh.
Nothing there at all for Floki. Sure, Palm Reading's a nice card and all, but he needs things that do things.
He does have Wave of Apathy, so he isn't dead next turn. He can just play Wave and then just go again the turn after.
Yeah. But there's nothing to go again into right now. Obviously, a couple of draw steps, but that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, one draw later, he can coin Soul Mirror if he draws it right. That's a huge deal.
He thinks he can. There's a neophyte in hand, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying purely from Floki's point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's got to the point where he's taking a random lackey to try and get out of trouble. This is how bad he thinks his spot is now. And I think I agree with him.
A Wave of Apathy and probably Penance the Dark Glare.
Yeah, I think you want to use all of your mana.
Ooh.
He's going the Tour Guide route instead. But this neophyte is going to be... I don't know, I was going to use the word nuisance, but I think it might be underselling to say how good it's going to be here.
Can probably trade off the 1/1 to make more space on board. So then he can
like
go
that.
like Neophyte, wriggling.
I like that. And you've just seen that turn from Floki is an absolute giveaway that he has no really good way to deal with your board, right? Like it was a scrambling, play all these things that generate cards turn over and over again. And that's the hint that Turner needs, I think, to go all in here.
And I think I'd really like to see the Wrigglings always hit the Dark Glare no matter what, because if you're scared of Soul Mirror, the Dark Glare is the one minion that will live through that.
Yeah, I like that. And he likes that too. Yeah, and Turner playing as if he can see the hand. He got the tips. He got the clue. You know, my opponent is scrambling for cards here. Let's take this moment and shut everything down.
And it's just not there, is it?
No. I mean, he hasn't drawn something resembling a Hearthstone card all game, to be fair.
I guess there's... Okay, yeah, so he... Kaj, the Giant...
Okay.
Broom...
Sure.
Oh, no. Oh, no, one more.
You want two brooms, don't you? You're trying to
no,
broom
Kaj,
twice.
Penance, Broom, right?
Yes. Yeah.
To kill the Giant. But he's going to go something a little bit different here. I guess this kind of does the same job.
I guess it does.
Probably better.
This is where you were trying to go, right?
Yeah.
When you started that.
Yeah, this is better because he can Penance an enemy minion, right? So this is just better. But I had the rough idea. This is all... I'm an ideas guy, Lorinda. I don't refine them. I just have the initial creation.
Yeah, I mean, normally Sotter would be sat here to refine your ideas. I'm here to poop on them, so...
Okay. I mean, he does that as well, so it's not too much of a surprise.
Yeah, he gets it right. Yes, but anyway, still 16 available for Turner. No Soulfire in the deck, just a reminder.
And the Wriggling Horrors are effectively the only burst, I think, available.
Let's have a quick check, but I believe...
Oh, Manari,
that's the case.
of course.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So he's one off. Another Neophyte,
Oh, he gets to
though.
go again! So this is where he spends the whole turn making sure he's not missing a lethal, and then he just plays something with a neophyte and carries on as if it never happened. Because he's so close, he has to just count and count and recount. Looking for any combination of sort of, can I do something clever with the Nightshade, or is there anything weird he can do to generate a point here?
Yeah, I think step 1, add up the damage, doesn't quite get there. Step 2, can he draw cards now? No, because he's done it and it's not lethal. So I think now it's just set up the game to push the most damage as possible and protect with the Cult Neophyte.
If ever there was a sign that someone thinks they're going to win next turn, it's having a 5 minion board and playing a broom to kill a 1/1 on its own. Like, that's Turna. Look at him. He thinks he's got it, but you're never quite as sure in Hearthstone.
And even if there was a Soul Mirror here, it would not be enough because the Dark Glare lives, which is again, and so does the Manari. So it's a huge issue, and Floki accepts his fate. He went 9-0 in Swiss with an extremely good performance this weekend, but it is Turna who slays him, I guess, and gets him out of this top 8. So Turna will move on to that top 4 as our first victor of the day. But again, you know, congratulations to Floki. I think just going 9-0 in Swiss and then winning your top 16 match is an extremely strong performance, and I'm sure we'll be seeing him in the next Masters Tour, no problem.
Yeah, super play throughout the tournament, going 9-0, something he'll always have to tell people about. But I like the way he conducted himself. Like he kept himself smiling and enjoying it all the way through, even down to the end. You know, he's going to be massively disappointed. He's come so far, but even then, just the raised dead to congratulate Turna, just the gentleman's way out in a Hearthstone tournament. I've liked everything I've seen about Floki, and I really hope we get to see him again in future events. And of course, we will, because he picked up the positioning required to qualify automatically for the next 2 Masters Tours. So somebody I hope we get to see a lot more of.